Hello and welcome to the Burrow. This is the 6th video in our series on the Burrows Badgers skirmish game. In this video we'll be taking a look at what's involved in starting, playing and finishing a campaign game. Although it's perfectly okay to play one-off games of Burrows Badgers, a big part of the fun is playing a campaign using the same warband over several games. That gives you the opportunity to watch your warband develop, to see your starting characters gaining new skills and equipment while new warriors join your band as they grow ever more famous, progressing from humble beginnings to fame, riches and glory, or maybe just to ignominious failure and death. To start a campaign, you'll need 2 or more players, each with their own warband. The pre-battle sequence. The player with the lowest warband rating rolls on the scenario table to determine which scenario is played. Now normally the scenario will tell you which player is the attacker and the defender, but where that's not specified, the player with the lowest warband rating can decide whether they want to be the attacker or the defender. Work out any balance points as explained on page 102 of the rulebook. Then set up the terrain and the warbands according to the rules for the scenario you're playing. Generally speaking, as we've said before, the more terrain the better. Around a quarter to a third of the table ideally should be covered with terrain. The battle sequence. Play the game. Here's a sample turn of a typical game. I'm using the warband we made in the first video of this series, Grimnir's Freeblades. They'll be fighting against the Black Paw, another newly created warband. Grimnir's Freeblades are led by Grimnir One-Eye, a hare warrior with a sword and heavy armour. Their second is a mouse called Nate, with light armour and shield and a sword. Then there's Black Bart the Otter, with his cutlass and pistol, and Vargo Grum the Weasel, equipped with a cudgel and a blunderbuss. Finally, they have Amber Fierceheart, a squirrel magic user, equipped with a mage's focus and the spells Haste and Cure. The Black Paw are a freebeast warband, led by Dengor the Bold, a squirrel equipped with a polearm and master-smithed very heavy armour. Their second is Bad Sally, a shrew, and she has a master-smithed sword, a crossbow, light armour and a light shield. Then there's Freynar Swifttail, the otter magic user, who has the spell Lightning. There's also Deadeye Kate, the rabbit, with her bow. Finally, there's Bigby Widestripe the Badger, with a 2-handed club and heavy armour. The 2 warbands are playing Scenario 5, Take and Hold. The primary objective for this scenario is that characters must claim terrain pieces by being in base contact with them while no enemies are within 1 inch of the terrain piece. Both warbands also have a secondary objective. Grimnir's Freeblades have the Showdown secondary objective, which means their leader must try and defeat the enemy leader in close combat. The Black Paw have the Capture secondary objective, which is very similar to the scenario's primary objective, really, and that should make it easy to fulfill with any luck. Grimnir's Freeblades have a warband rating of 40, and the Black Paw have a warband rating of 50, so that 10-point difference gives Grimnir's Freeblades a bonus fate point for this game. We joined the game at the start of turn 2. During turn 1, most of the characters were just moving into position, but 2 of Grimnir's Freeblades have been wounded. Grimnir the Hare has suffered 2 wounds from bowfire, and Black Bart has taken 6 wounds from Bad Sally's crossbow. All of the Black Paw are totally unhurt so far. As turn 2 begins, on the right hand side of the board, Black Bart is in cover behind the tavern, where he ran after Bad Sally shot at him. She's still waiting for another try. In the middle of the table, Dengor has claimed the covered market for the Black Paw. But closing in fast is Grimnir One-Eye, supported by Nate and Amber. Over on the right, Vargo Grum is lining up his blunderbuss on Kate the Rabbit, while she prepares to launch another arrow at the foe. And towards the corner, Frenar the Otter readies a spell. Finally, Big B the Badger cheekily claims 2 terrain pieces at once thanks to his 50mm base. The turn begins with an initiative roll-off to see which warband gets the first action. As both leaders are still on the table, we use their stats for the initiative roll-off. The Black Paw are the attackers, so we use Dengor's Presence of D6 versus Grimnir's Fortitude of D8. And Grimnir wins. Choosing what order to activate your characters in can be very important. Delay a key character's action too long and they may suffer wounds or even go out of action before you get the chance to use them. Amber the Squirrel Mage takes the first action of the turn. She makes a cast spell action, casting the haste spell onto Grimnir the Hare. The spell has a casting target of 5, so she has to beat that to succeed. She has a Fortitude of D8 and she rolls a 4. She is equipped with a Mage's Focus, giving her a +1 bonus, and she hasn't moved, and that gives her a +2 bonus. So her total roll is 7, which is higher than the target of 5. The spell is successfully cast. Now it's the Black Paw's turn to activate a model. Deadeye Kate makes a shoot action at Grimnir the Hare. She's well within the bow's 18-inch range, so she doesn't need to move first. Her range stat is a d6, and Grimnir's nimbleness is also a d6. Kate rolls a 4, and adds a +2 bonus for standing still to aim, for a total roll of 6. Grimnir rolls a 2, and suffers a -1 penalty to his nimbleness roll because he's wearing heavy armour, for a total roll of 1. 6 beats 1, so the shot has hit. The result is 5, so Grimnir suffers 5 wounds. But he's wearing heavy armour, giving him tough 2, and the wounds are reduced from 5 to 3. You'll notice that Grimnir now has a shaded wound box crossed off. That would normally mean a -1 penalty to every roll-off he makes. But he has the special skill Enduring, which allows him to ignore penalties caused by wounds. The initiative switches back to Grimnir's Free Blades now, and he decides to make an attack action on the Black Paw's leader, Dengor the Bold. He has a move stat of d8, so can move 8 inches over open ground, and Dengor is easily within reach. Grimnir moves into base contact. An attack action is a strike versus block roll-off, so Grimnir rolls his strike stat of d10 versus Dengor's block stat of d6. He rolls a 9 and gets a +2 bonus for moving over 2 inches into base contact for a total roll of 11. Dengor rolls a 3 and has no modifiers for a total roll of 3. 11 is higher than 3, so the attack succeeds with a result of 8. Grimnir has the Strong 1 skill and is using his sword in 2 hands, which gives him an extra Strong 1. This boosts the total wounds caused to 10. But Dengor is wearing very heavy armour, giving him a tough of 3, which subtracts from the wounds caused, so Grimnir's attack does 7 wounds to Dengor. Ugh. Normally, the initiative would now switch back to the Black Paw, but Amber the Mage cast haste on Grimnir, and that means he gets to make another action immediately. So he declares another attack action on Dengor. He's already in base contact with Dengor, so he does not need to move, but that also means he won't get the +2 bonus for charging this time. He rolls his d10 strike, and he scores a 10, a perfect roll. This gives him a +7 bonus for a total roll of 17. Dengor's block roll is a 5, and he suffers a -1 modifier due to the wounds caused in the previous attack for a total roll of 4. The attack succeeds with a result of 13. Adding Grimnir's Strong 2 and subtracting Dengor's Tough 3, the attack causes a total of 12 wounds. And with the 7 he's already taken, Dengor is taken out of action. And that also fulfills Grimnir's secondary objective, Showdown, earning extra experience points for his band. And, if previous campaigns were anything to go by, probably setting up a long-term rivalry between the two leaders. Now it's the Black Paw's turn to act, and Bigby Widestripe is eager to avenge his leader. The Badger declares an attack action on Grimnir the Hare and is just within range of his 8-inch move. He gets into base contact. But before the attack roll-off happens, we have to see if Grimnir is scared, because the Badger has the special skill Fearsome. Now this means making a roll-off using the Badger's Presence of D10 versus Grimnir's Fortitude of D8, and Grimnir loses. For the rest of the turn, he'll have a -3 penalty to strike and block rolls against Bigby. Now Bigby makes his attack roll-off using his D8 strike versus the Hare's D8 block, and he rolls a 1 against Grimnir's 4. But all is not lost. Because Bigby charged over 2 inches to reach base contact, he gets a +2 bonus, and as Grimnir is scared, he gets a -3 penalty. So the final rolls are a 3 for Bigby and a 1 for Grimnir. The attack hits. With a result of 2, it would normally only cause 2 wounds, and Grimnir's heavy armour gives him Tough 2, which would absorb them both. But Bigby is a Badger and has the Strong 3 skill. And he's using a double-handed weapon for another Strong 3. So Grimnir suffers another 6 wounds. The initiative switches back once more to Grimnir's Free Blades. Nate the Mouse goes next. He's only got a move stat of D6, and no enemies are within 6 inches, so he can't declare an attack. And he has no spells or ranged weapons either. Instead, he declares a sprint action, allowing him 2 moves, and he uses these to get into base contact with Bigby. It's no help this turn, but will hopefully leave the Badger outnumbered in turn 3. Freynar the Otter now takes an action. Declaring a cast spell action, she casts Lightning at Amber Fierceheart. The spell needs line of sight and has a 24-inch range, but Amber is easily inside of that. The spell is quite difficult to cast, with a target of 6. It's a Fortitude-based spell, so Freynar rolls her Fortitude stat of D8 and gets a 5. But she hasn't moved, so she gets a +2 bonus to her roll for a total roll of 7. That's over 6, so the spell is successfully cast. The lightning spell causes D8 wounds, and Freynar rolls a D8, scoring an 8. This is not a perfect roll though. Remember, the perfect roll rule only applies to dice rolled during a roll-off, not to dice rolled at any other time. Still, 8 wounds is a lot, and Amber Fierceheart has the Delicate 2 skill, which means she takes 2 extra wounds for a total of 10. Now the initiative goes back to Grimnir's Warband, and Black Bart the Otter has decided to make a move on Bad Sally. He declares a shoot action. He's got a move stat of D8, so he uses 2 inches of his movement to get around the corner, then the last 6 inches to get into cover behind the tree. His pistol has a range of 12 inches, and Bad Sally is in range and in line of sight. He makes a shoot roll-off using his range stat of D8 versus Sally's nimbleness stat of D6, and he rolls a 2. He has a -1 modifier due to the wounds he suffered in turn 1 for a total roll of 1. Sally rolls a 4 and has no modifiers for a total roll of 4. The shoot action fails. Black Bart's pistol shot misses. The initiative switches again, and Bad Sally the Shrew is ready and eager to hit back. She gets her crossbow out and declares a shoot action at Black Bart. He's well within the crossbow's 24-inch range. She has line of sight, but it's only partial, and Black Bart is touching terrain, so counts as having cover. So that's a total -2 modifier, but Bad Sally stands still to gain the +2 modifier for aiming. And she has the special skill Fast Shot, which allows her to shoot twice if she doesn't move. For the first shot, Bad Sally rolls her range stat of D6 versus Bart's nimbleness of D8. She rolls a 4, and he rolls a 7, but has a -1 modifier for the wounds he's taken, so his final roll is a 6. Bad Sally's first shot misses.
Oh crap.
For the second shot, Sally rolls a 6, which is a perfect roll, giving her a +7 modifier for a total roll of 13. Black Bart rolls a 4, -1 for his wounds for a total roll of 3. The shot hits with a result of 10. And crossbows have the strong 2 skill, causing a total of 12 wounds on Black Bart. And that's enough to take him out of action. The initiative switches back to Grimnir's Free Blades, and there's only one character left to take an action this turn. The weasel, Vargo Grum, has a choice of targets. He could shoot at Kate the Rabbit. She's within range, and he'd get the +2 aim bonus for not moving. But Freynar the Otter is a bigger threat. Vargo would have to move to get her into range, as his blunderbuss can only shoot 8 inches. Finally, there's Bigby the Badger, who is the biggest danger of them all. But Bigby is in base contact with friendly models, which makes shooting him risky. He moves closer and takes the shot. First he has to roll a d6, and on a 1 or a 2 he'll hit one of his own friendly models. So Vargo spends a fate point to allow him to roll 2 dice and choose which one to use, which is just as well, as the first dice roll comes up a 2. Thankfully, the second is a 4, and Vargo chooses to use that one. So the shoot action goes ahead as planned, and he resolves the shot at the Badger. The shoot roll-off is made using his range stat of d6 versus the Badger's nimbleness of d6. Vargo rolls a 4, and his blunderbuss has a +3 modifier to represent its blast of buckshot for a total roll of 7. Bigby rolls a 1 and has a -1 modifier to his nimbleness due to his heavy armour for a total roll of 0. The shot hits with a result of 7. But Bigby has the tough 2 skill, and his heavy armour gives him another tough 2, meaning 4 wounds are absorbed. So of the 7 wounds caused, only 3 get past. And that is the end of the turn. So at the end of turn 2, over on the right hand side of the table, Bad Sally is all alone now. She'll need to move across if she's going to affect the game in the later turns. In the middle of the table, things are heating up, with the Badger about to be surrounded by Grimnir's beasts. Behind them is Amber the Squirrel Magic User, who's been badly wounded and will probably need to try out her heal spell on herself. While over on the right, both Deadeye Kate and Freynar Swifttail are still unwounded and ready to hit hard with arrows and magic. A lot's riding on the initiative roll-off for turn 3. It might be time to burn a fate point or 2. So, that's a sample game turn. Post-battle sequence. After the battle is over, both players work their way through the 7 phases of the post-battle sequence. Any dice rolls must be seen by both players or witnessed by a neutral third party. Phase 1. Survivors and the injured. The first thing to do after a game is work out who survived and who didn't. Now it's important to note this doesn't mean whether they're dead or not, but literally whether they were still standing at the end of the game. So, if they went out of action during the game and their model was removed from the table, they don't count as being a survivor for this phase. They might be injured, they might be dead. Either way, they don't count as being a survivor. Every character who didn't use all their wounds and didn't go out of action during the game counts as having survived the game, so they are our survivors. Those who didn't survive, on the other hand, who went out of action, after the game they need to make a fortitude roll-off against a target of 6. If you beat that 6, then the character's injuries weren't too severe, they heal up and they'll be ready for the next game. and they gain +1 experience point as a result. Mark it on their Warband roster. If the roll-off is a failure, however, and it often is, then the character might be badly injured or even dead. Roll a d20 on the permanent injuries chart. It's on page 90 of the rulebook, and have a look and see what happened to them. If you get a result that's impossible to apply, then count that instead as a result of 12 enfeebled. Now, assuming the character doesn't die, the injured character receives 2 experience points. Mark them on their Warband roster. If you roll a 1 or a 2, however, and the character does die, all of their equipment and weaponry are lost. Phase 2, Off Duty. Between battles, all surviving Warband members, so, as we established, those who didn't go out of action during the game, can be given jobs to do. They can choose either between labouring or wandering. If they labour, they'll work to provide upgrades for the Warband's den. If they wander, they'll head out into the lands around in search of money or assistance from the locals. So decide what each surviving character will do, and for each character that wanders, roll a d20 on the Wanderings chart and apply the result to your Warband. For each character that labours, roll a d6 and add or subtract the character's strong or weak skill value. Add for strong, subtract for weak, to see how many labour points they produce. You can keep a running total of your labour points on your Warband roster. There's a space for that. You can spend them, or they may be saved between games. Phase 3, Experience. Every time a character gains 1 or more experience points, mark them on the Warband roster experience track from left to right. For every shaded box the character has marked, they earn a roll on the advance chart. The rolls should be made immediately after the game when the advance is gained, while both players are there to witness the result. Phase 4, Upkeep. For every character in the Warband, you have to spend money on general upkeep at the end of each game, giving them food, drink, other general living supplies. This cost is 1 penny for every small and medium model, 2 pennies for each large model, and 3 pennies for each massive model. If you can't do it, if you haven't got enough money, then your Warband will go hungry. All of your characters have to start the next game with 1 wound already crossed off on their Warband rosters. Phase 5, Hire new recruits. New characters are recruited in the same way as the original Warband was made. You can hire any animal type available to your Warband. So most Warbands can choose freely, whereas single species Warbands can only choose new recruits from their own species. You do this exactly as if you were making a new Warband, so you choose your characters from the tables on pages 43 and 44, pay the pennies cost for them, and buy them equipment. And just like when you made your Warband, you can make any of your new recruits magic users if you want to, simply by buying them 1 or more spells. They'll suffer weak and delicate penalties like any other Warband member would as a result though. Phase 6, Trading. After every game, money can be spent on new equipment for the Warband using the open trading table on page 98, which covers all the equipment commonly available to buy. As well as that, each player will be offered D4 rare items by dodgy black market traders. Roll on the rare items table on page 100 to see what it is you get offered. You can buy any or all of these, provided you want them and provided you can afford them. As well as buying new weapons and equipment, you can also sell any weapons and equipment that you already own. However, you don't get as much money back for it because it's had wear and tear inflicted on it by your characters. It's second hand basically. You sell it for half the price it's listed for on the open trading table. In the case of rare equipment or magical weapons and gear where you had a random or variable price, you need to roll that random price again and halve it to see what price you can get for it under current market conditions. Phase 7, Warband Rating. Now you need to update your Warband rating, allowing for any experience that you've earned during the game and any changes that you've made to your Warband's membership due to deaths or new recruits you may have taken, for example. Well, that about covers the basics of a campaign game and concludes this look at the Burrows Badgers skirmish game rules. For future videos, we'll probably do a few battle reports or ask people to submit questions that they want us to answer. Anyway, let us know what you'd like to see. Thank you for watching.